Welcome to Ones on Cloud 9. I'm Heather Black, a coach and champion for women in tech and founder of Supermums, a global brand supporting mums to develop a career within the Salesforce ecosystem. The Mums on Cloud 9 podcast aims to inspire mums to progress their career in the Salesforce sector, whether they're starting out to climbing the career ladder. We provide top tips and insight on how to succeed in your career and overcome adversity that many women can face in the workplace. During Series 5, I'm delighted to be talking to inspirational people about how to develop your leadership skills and styles to help you thrive and progress within your career. We really want to help women develop and carve out a career for life rather than just feel like they're stuck within a job role. And these leadership skills and styles will build your confidence to enable you to progress from any job role, from an admin to building and progressing to a Salesforce architect. We want to help you achieve great outcomes by having those softer as well as more technical skills in your toolbox. This week, I'm talking about how to be happy in life and about how to create the work-life balance. Being a leader and having those leadership skills is about creating boundaries. And regardless of whatever level of company you work at, you should focus on living out your values and feeling happy in what you do. That is a number one criteria for leaders. They have to be happy, they have to inspire others, but they equally need to know their own boundaries and what that balance is that they need. As mothers, we shouldn't feel like we have to work in a junior, low-level skilled role to find balance, and we need to remove the myth that women in more senior roles can't have work-life balance. It's just not true. It is absolutely possible. I'm going to be sharing my story about how I overcame some of those challenges to getting that balance right. The best female leaders are those that have mastered the key to work-life balance. And ultimately, if you're happy in your life, then this will lead to those better relationships, higher performance, and ultimately more success in all areas of your life. Personally, I started my journey to improving my happiness back in 2019. And I started working with a leadership coach as part of a mastermind group. As a qualified coach myself, I know and appreciate the value that coaching has, and sometimes you can't coach yourself to the desired effect. You need somebody who's going to make you more accountable and motivate you through that journey and to ask those difficult questions. Personally, I know I needed to make a change as the balance I had wasn't working for me at that time and I wasn't fulfilled. I felt exhausted from working so many hours, frustrated not being able to spend more time with my kids, and it was the opposite to what I'd actually set out to achieve with a Salesforce career ultimately. And I think that's the reality, is that we can start out in a Salesforce career and then seek out progression, but not know how to manage those boundaries. So regardless of any job role that you're in, unless you can hold yourself to account, unless you can put in those boundaries, unless you can really honour what it is that you need to do to find that balance, you are not going to find that flexible role in any company, because it's about your mindset and it's about how you operate. So today I'm going to be sharing 10 strategies that you can do to really put those boundaries back into place to make you a fulfilled leader. And these can exist and coexist with you at any job role that you're in. So I'm going to start my journey saying, I wanted to get into Salesforce. I'd launched a career, I'd happily started working as a freelance Salesforce consultant. And with this, I was earning a good salary working part-time. And that worked really well for me because I was my own boss. I could work with clients, I could set the precedent around how I could do things. But what started happening is that the clients I was working with needed more of my time and would call me if I was off on days with the kids. And I was like, well, how do I juggle this? And I was scared they might go somewhere else if I didn't fulfill that. And so I felt like it was a great opportunity to bring more of a collective group of consultants together so we could work together. And so they could work on the days that I'm not available and potentially then support those clients. And so I made that decision to grow a Salesforce consultancy team back in 2015. The reality of this, though, meant that actually it put more pressure on me rather than less pressure. So some of those things, and that is partly the way that we built it, partly because of the natural pressures of running a business. I had imagined that by growing a team it would be exciting, it would help me to share responsibilities of workload so I could continue to work part-time, it would give me ideas, a team to bounce ideas off. But at the same time, the reality of that was that I had extra team members where they needed a salary and I needed to make sure they performed, and we needed to make sure we had enough income coming in and we had enough sales. And I kind of also got to that point where I wanted to not always be working in the office. I wanted to meet with people. So I decided I'd get an office in London where we could meet up. But the reality of that was that the team that I hired really wanted me to be in London like 3 times a week. And that was a long round trip for me. It was a 4-hour round trip at £90 a day. And I hadn't really anticipated that or realised that that was what people would want, within that team environment. So I hadn't really got the balance right. And this sort of gradually then kind of accentuated as we grew, because I had a second child. I'd had a couple of miscarriages during this time, and that was probably down to the stress and the element of balancing this fine balance of, it's great to have a team to work with, but it means that we've got to earn all this extra money, we've got to deliver on projects, and we've got to create a process where all the team are kind of syncing together. And there was so much to think about, and having a young child and a second on the way, or trying for a second, and having those unfortunate sort of having the unfortunate miscarriages during that time. That's a lot to deal with when you're trying to grow and lead a company. So I think you've got to be really mindful about, the extra pressure for me was I was running a company and had all that on my shoulders. So that is an ultimate leadership role, which kind of puts you in a strategic position. And absolutely some mothers can do that if they've got the right support network around them, they've got the right boundaries in place, and everything's there. For some of that, I didn't have all those things and building blocks that I needed, and there's some of the 10 strategies that I'll be talking about that I've learnt, and I started to get the leadership coaching to help me kind of come through this process and kind of really work on what is it I need to do to find this right capacity. Now, obviously, there's loads of leadership roles in between there, from whether you're working as a junior to a senior to whatever. So, all the strategies I'm going to teach you is kind of going to help you in that balance and that progression. Jumping straight to a CEO role like I did, and having a whole team and a management structure and everything to put in place, is a massive leap. And I have some of our super mums come to us to say, well, I'm thinking of running and building my own consultancy. And that's a fantastic opportunity, but there's so much I learned on that journey, which I now teach and teach a lot of people, a lot of the strategies and things that I learned through my consultancy skills course at Supermums, that need to be taken into consideration. It's certainly not a walk in the park, and I've learned so much that this is what empowers me to share it and give it back. So it's not insurmountable, it's absolutely doable, but what you need to be mindful of is getting that balance right. And all this hindsight is great, to go, well, why did I not do the team completely virtual? Surely that would have been better. Well, at the time I wanted to connect with other people, and why did I build the company in that way to take overheads on? Maybe it could have been a different business model, where we work more in collaboration rather than having loads of employees. And these are things that you need to think through. What is the way that it's going to work for you? What is the balance that you need? And to go into any job opportunity that you create for yourself, or you apply for and get interviewed for, be really clear in your mind about what's going to work for you. Don't compromise, because if you bring the great assets to that company, they are going to want you and love you and kind of, really appreciate the fact that what is going to work for you, because you need to say to them, in order for me to be a really effective, happy, thriving leader in this team, this is the balance that I'm going to need. And the more you know that, and the more you're clear on that, then they are going to see that and go, okay, we get it, brilliant, okay, well, let's make this compromise work, and whether that's you working virtually or working 4 days a week or whatever it is, really sell yourself on, this is what I know that makes me thrive. Because what they don't want to do is hire somebody that's going to suffer from burnout, that might leave after 6 months because they can't handle the stress, and it doesn't work out for anybody. So what you don't want to do is hit the wall like I did. I hit that wall, I didn't know which way to go, which is why I turned to coaching. And it's the reason why coaching tools and techniques come up over and over again within our podcast shows, because they really do help you facilitate your thought process to go, how do I do things better? How can I perform better? How can I feel better? How can I thrive, not survive? And that is, one of my common phrases that I want people to think about. Am I surviving? Am I really happy every day? Or is it that I need to make some shifts and some maybe difficult decisions to make my life better? And so, that's the process I had to go through working with my leadership coach. I had to really look at my life from different lenses and from different points of view, and really examine what it is that I needed to do to make a shift. And I would never have done that without the help and support of a leadership coach, because some of those things you just don't want to examine, some of those things you don't know you have to examine. You don't necessarily go deep enough, or kind of have those perspectives. So, it's not something that you can just do overnight. It's something that needs a lot of consideration, a lot of thought. It needs a lot of time. With this leadership coaching I did, those changes couldn't be made overnight. Absolutely, I wanted them to be, because I was desperate for a shift to happen. But, the reality was, some of those things took 2 years to come to fruition, to make those changes. And that's the reality, and that's a painful journey to go on. But if that light is better at the other side and you're happier coming out the other side, then it's well worth making those shifts that you need to do. And that's where I am now. I have made some huge shifts, which I'm going to share with you. As I say, I set out on my journey of living a flexible, well-paid career with Salesforce, and being happy in that role. And it wasn't Salesforce causing me the problems of not enjoying my career. It wasn't the knowledge and the skills of the technology. It was about how I worked as an individual, how I, the relationships I had in my life, the things that I did to manage my performance, were all the things that would impede on my flexibility and my happiness, that I would have to master as a person and an individual to perform in any job role, to create that balance. And that's really where, we love to support our super mums and people in our community to, yes, you can earn more in a Salesforce career. Yes, you can keep progressing up that career ladder. But what's really important is to be mindful about how you develop yourself and thrive as a mother, as a woman, as a person, because I know we have, everybody else listening to the show that perhaps doesn't associate with those brackets. How do you thrive in any career, in a Salesforce career? And as I say, they're the 10 things that I'm going to be sharing with you about how I pivoted back to living out my dream. Now, most people will hit burnout and go, I need a career break. I need to stop doing that. I need to give up my career and take time out. And the reality is, that's where people will get to if they don't do the work on themselves to manage things properly. And so what you need to be of is that mindful and having that strategy to go, I love this job, but it's not going to take over my life. I'm going to thrive in it because I've put these things into place. So we're going to have a short break now. I've talked about the journey, and then when we come back, we'll talk about those 10 strategies that you can do to get there. So welcome back, everybody. So now we're going to delve into the 10 areas that you can really focus on to shift your balance and boost your happiness. All of these have significantly helped me recalibrate how I work to get back to that dream of living a well-paid, flexible career with Salesforce. It's definitely improved my quality time with my kids and also my productivity and relationships at work. So let's crack on through these 10 things that you can do. So the first is really simple. It's get clear on what happiness looks like for you. What does happiness actually look like for you? When I started my coaching journey, the coach said to me, what is the word that describes how you want to feel at the end of this coaching journey? And it was happy. That was the word that I wrote down. Now, in order to really evaluate what happiness looks like and feels like in all areas of your life, what we recommend at Supermums and we encourage all our trainees to do is that Wheel of Life template. And the Wheel of Life makes you evaluate all your different areas of your life, whether it's relationships, your career, your friends, your financial position, your health and well-being. There's 8 areas that you'd look at and examine on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being completely unhappy, to 10 being your optimum happiness, and really evaluating, well, what does that mean for me? Where would I rank myself now, and why? And what would a 10 look like? What would a 10 feel and look like? What would that actually do? And this can really bring some areas to life, because how often do you really sit down and evaluate how happy you are in all areas of your life? Like, you don't, unless the coach sits with you and makes you accountable to doing. So that's the first thing that we do with you, is go, actually, how happy am I right now, honestly and frankly, and what is it that I need to do? And then you start to identify from that the areas that you can make a shift in, the areas that you really see as the priorities for yourself. So that's the first thing. The second strategy is to focus on living out your values. Your values will change throughout your life and your career, and again, it's one of those things, like, how often do you sit down and go, so what are my values right now? What is important to me? Am I living these out? We don't. So again, working with a leadership coach, off the back of this podcast, we encourage you to do that exercise of spend some time really reflecting on what are your values right now in your life. Google values, identify some, think about, actually, these are things. Identify if you're living them out right now, and if you're not, what could you do to live them out? What would be the shifts that you'd be seeing in order for you to be happier? Because if you're living out your values, you're going to be happier. So the Wheel of Life and the values exercise are really good foundation steps to go, what is important to me and what is missing right now between where I am and where I want to be, because that will kind of give you the focus and priority to really sort of go, okay, these are things that I need to focus on first, and to start making those shifts. So they're the first 2. The third is to spend time being creative. And creative could be simply as exercise. So my aha moment for me was like, I never find time to exercise. Well, actually, going for a walk or exercising, I found actually that's really good for me for coming up with my creative ideas, because it gives me time away from computers and being distracted by things. And I always get those aha moments when I come out the swimming pool, or I've gone for a walk, I'm like, oh yes, I need to do this, and I'm thinking about things. So you can be working whilst exercising, you can be working whilst drawing a picture. You're just doing it alongside creativity, and some of the best experts out there will tell you how important your creative side of your mind is to work. And some of the best, if you're an ideas person, a solutions person, which a lot of us are in the Salesforce world, you might just need to re-click your brain into another area to kind of help things feed through and focus you on different things. So think about creative time as being fulfilling for work stuff. Don't think about it as something that maybe you need to sort of put on the side burner to do when you have time. Think about the importance of creativity in your everyday life to make you happy. And to say creativity could mean different things to different people. Find the thing that works for you. The fourth strategy is do the bits you love and delegate the rest. It's really, really good to knuckle down on what is it that you really love. And I have done various different roles within the Salesforce sector. I've actually enjoyed all those different parts, but then at certain points I've got bored of doing this now. I want to do more BA work, or I want to do more sales work, or I want to do more admin work, and I've changed over time what I enjoy doing. And so I very much encourage people to progress within the Salesforce space, keep moving into different job roles, keep progressing those skills and experiences, because with every progression you'll also get that pay rise. Really zone in, what is it that I'm loving about this job right now? What is it that I don't want to do? Can you delegate those things? Can you move into a new job role? Really dissect it, and kind of get focused on that. Number 5 is about recruiting the right team around you. Now, obviously this depends on where you sit and what company and what your capacity is. But, the team around you might be other Salesforce professionals, it might be complementary skills. You may or may not have the opportunity to hire. Obviously, if they're working with you, it's nice to have an involvement in that process. But what you want is an energizing, supportive and fun team. If you are finding you're working somewhere where you can't influence that and you've not got the right energy around you, that's going to compromise your happiness. You potentially need to look for somewhere else. If you've got the opportunity to influence and hire the right people, then do that wisely. One of the things that we started doing is using personality tests to hire complementary skill sets, thinking very much about the language, talking about the values of our company and what their values are, and really getting clear on what that balance is. So think about how all those things can come into play for you. The next is surrounding yourself with positive people. So this leads very nicely on from, the having the right team. But equally, positive people can show up in all areas of your life. So do the people around you support you and your ambitions? Do they bring happiness into your life? One of the big things for me was learning about narcissism as part of my journey, and realising actually there was some individuals in my life, in my personal life and work life even, which, had those traits and were not actually supportive in the way that I had hoped and thought they would be, obviously as part of your team and your family infrastructure, if you like. As a person, I'm very much focused on, okay, well, how do we fix this? What's the problem? What's the solution? Hence why we've got a Salesforce career. If it's wrong, let's understand where it went wrong and how do we do it differently. Like, I'm very sort of black and white and constructive in my approach. And I found it really disconcerting that some people can try and threaten you, bully you, ignore you, challenge you on what you're trying to, want them to do, and realise that is a trait of narcissism. And, when people are trying to put you down and not listening to you and not valuing you, that really doesn't play out well, right, in terms of who you're working with. So I very much went through a process of changing some of those relationships in my life, making sure that the people I hired, had different, obviously, personality traits. And even, other sort of relationships is having those expert coaches and mentors around me who instill positivity in me every day. And that includes my Peloton instructors, right? I bought a Peloton, the instructors are amazing, they're very uplifting. And so you want to surround yourself with positive people who are going to motivate you and encourage you and support you. And to really move those people out that don't support what you do, that are always trying to make you feel bad or bring you down, because their approach should be, this isn't, obviously, if they're making you feel bad in any way, it's like, well, actually, how do we work on a solution together here? Like, what is it that needs to be better if something isn't working? It's not about saying you're a bad mother or, you're a terrible boss or whatever. It's like, well, what's the problem? Okay, what do we need to do? Is there a strategy that can fix this? Or is it that actually you might be, quite frankly, not aligned anymore? It's maybe what they want in their life is not aligned with yours. And so it might be the right thing for that relationship to part. And that shouldn't be a bad thing, right? That shouldn't be a problem of contention. Managing relationships in a positive way and making sure that it's the right fit for everybody and that you're all working in harmony is ultimately what everybody wants. But relationships will go through a journey of evolution. What companies need, what they want in their life, again with marriages, and people get divorced, right, because it might not be the right decision for them to stay together anymore. So you have to be mindful of relationships, and that was one of the areas in the wheel of life that you'll need to obviously reflect on. And building through that then leads me to that next strategy, is about building your support network. I was working virtually at home and very much felt isolated, even though, I wanted to work from home, right? I wanted to work remotely, but that meant that I wasn't able to get to a lot of events. I wouldn't have that flexibility to go out in the evenings and to travel into London for those. And so part of the reason for launching Supermums was to build that community of other people like me in a virtual space that I could connect with and, thrive off speaking to. And now we've got a community of over 500 strong within our Supermums community. We actually have a lot more that have attended our free educational events. We've got 6,500 people on our newsletter as of today. And they're all thriving and connecting with each other, meeting up at events that they can do. And we also run sort of virtual events. And so this picks you up, right? Connecting with like-minded people, answering questions, helping each other. Like, I love helping other people. That gives me a lift in my morale, and equally with other people. So find those groups, tap into those support networks. Don't lean away, but lean in. And get that motivation and encouragement from your peers, because it can definitely help you progress more quickly and support you. Women lean into others. That's a big trait of women, is to have that support network. Number 8 is about uplifting environments. So create a home and a work environment that really makes you feel safe, secure, empowered. I love having positive affirmations around the house. I love candles. I love buying pictures that I love. I walk around the house smiling and really absorbing the pictures and artwork that I've got on my wall. I make sure I have a cleaner, who keeps on top of everything and keeps the house clean, because I'd rather be spending my time doing other things and working. So it's really important to create an environment that you love to live in and that you thrive within. So spend some time making it your own, and sort of keeping, that sort of nice harmony in your workplace. And sort of next to last, is setting boundaries. So get clear on where you want to work and how you want to work. So is it remote, hybrid, in the office? Is it how many hours a week? Is it daytimes, evenings? Make sure that you've got the boundaries in place to ring fence part of your days. So I made the decision, we've all been on Zoom for so long, I get burnt out from on Zoom all day. So I put in like half a day I'll have Zoom meetings, half a day I'm just going to work at my desk, cracking on with things, or going for that swim or that walk to think creatively. And so create that work pattern that's going to make you thrive. Don't be on Zoom meetings for 8 hours a day if you're not going to get anything else done, and that's going to exhaust you. Just be really mindful about the boundaries you need to put in place to thrive at work, and block out time to spend with your kids, your hobbies, your reflective work practices, and make sure you look after yourself. You have to look after yourself. You have to be the most positive version of yourself in order to then be the most positive version for your partner, your kids, your colleagues, etc. Because if you aren't in a good place, that is going to reflect all the way through. So be really mindful about, what is important for you. And finally, find your faith in something. For me, this was leaning back into Christ and to God. I appreciate everybody has their different faith or no faith, and this might be relevant for you. But I was brought up very much with Christianity, moved away from it more in my teenage years due to sort of some turbulence there. But hitting my 40s, when I was hitting these challenging times, I really leaned back into praying every day and asking for God's help to keep me safe, to give me guidance, to kind of guide me through these areas to make the right decisions. And now that's led me back to church and being more, mindful about, the bigger universe that's out there, what we're kind of all aligned to do. And I truly feel that, what I'm doing with Supermums is very much aligned with empowering women, giving them strength, giving them courage, giving love and joy to everybody to help them sort of achieve to be the best mum for their children ultimately, but to maintain their life. And for me, belief and leaning in and having that support has been very important to me. And so the final sort of area to reflect on is there a bigger belief that you feel like you can be part of that aligns with you, whether that's Christianity or something else, that allows you to feel part of a bigger mission to give back, to kind of, further what you want to do. So think about those 10 areas. They're the 10 things that I'd recommend you go away with, think through, listen to the podcast again, obviously, and start to do those first 2 exercises to really reflect and zone in on what is the most important things for you to shift, and then start working through the rest. Find out where those pain points exist, where you can tweak the dial a little bit to improve your happiness, and just be really mindful about what is it that you need and want. And do this every so often, because things will change and evolve. What you need will evolve and change. And so this isn't a one-time exercise, it's something that you can use for life. And so through Supermums, we're very excited to be running coaching programs, helping our trainees think through this. We run the Accelerate career coaching course, but equally we are just launching a leadership mastermind group as well for those leaders who are more accomplished in their sales. Coaching important skill set and tool set alongside learning the trade of Salesforce. How to implement a system is great, but you've got to manage yourself to really perform. So I really hope that's been useful for you today. I hope that's given you some food for thought and has helped you think about how you can thrive rather than survive as a female leader in tech. And thank you so much for joining us for the show today. If you like the session, please do rate and review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate your feedback. And if you want to find out more about Supermums, you can visit our website at supermums.org. Thank you very much. Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye.